I love how you've got your first AML shirt on.
Well, you have to, you know. It's got to be. It's social distancing, but we're still part of the. It's trying to keep that same culture
Yeah.
going. That's the important thing.
Startup life with Bion. Um,
Yeah.
so I was keen to just hear your thoughts on, yeah, obviously, just before we started recording, you said 5-year recession. How do you think I was going to cope at least over the lockdown period?
I mean, lockdown's interesting. Like the thing is what we're seeing is a really unprecedented. Like we've got, um, even in the GFC, like people were still jumping on planes, they were still going on holidays, they were still eating at restaurants. This is like completely different. This is total shutdown. So that has a completely different set of ramifications than a normal GFC. Like a normal GFC, like growth's down 10%. Like, okay, well, we need to get it back up. This is growth's down 95%. So, so how do we get it back up? It's going to be interesting. Like we're going all right through the lockdown. Like we've got 28 staff. We're all remotely working from home. Like we were quite well set up to do this. But I also think it's a mind shift change because everyone's like, oh, we're set up for remote working. So no, you're not. You're set up for remote working where 10% of your staff might be home at any one time. You're not set up for mass remote working, which is having 100% of your staff distributed across the country or in their houses. That's a completely different way of managing people. So I
Yeah,
think people need to get head around that.
yeah, for sure. So like some of the bigger companies in particular as well, um, will be trying to cope with that. In terms of
Yeah,
like a 4-week lockdown, do you think it's going to be 4 weeks?
it's probably going to be a bit longer. I
Yeah,
wouldn't be surprised if it's a bit longer. But I think, yeah, everyone's just got to adjust and then find a way to work from home. The real estate sector's been hit particularly hard because, again, like you can't show open homes. Um, yeah, and our thing is based on volume, so transactional flow. So that gets hit again with all this stuff that's happening. But we've got mechanisms for coping with that.
yeah. I guess in terms of real estate as well, I know I was speaking to a lawyer friend the other day, and they said basically that people have sold their houses and can't move out of them, and people can't move into the next ones because of this lockdown. So obviously, there's a lot of tension for lawyers in the space around that at the moment too. But I think we just need to
Yeah,
do that 4 weeks. I think we need to not be naive because obviously military will come out like we've seen overseas if people aren't sticking to the guidelines. We've got an
yeah.
opportunity to make it 4 weeks, but I fear for the economy if it ends up being 3 months, which, I mean, the wage subsidies for 3 months, which makes me kind of wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I just think people don't understand the long-term ramifications of this. They think, okay, well, it's 4 weeks or it's 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever, and then everything goes back to normal. That's not really how economies work.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is built on a flywheel. Like all these people that are now being made unemployed, they don't have money to then pump into the economy. So like if I run a restaurant, I'm like, oh, my tables, are getting booked out. I need to hire more staff. You don't hire the staff first and then hope your tables get booked out, right? So all of a sudden the demand's gone like this because a lot of people have been fired. It's not just going to go like back up to where it was before the lockdown. Like that's just not how it works. It's a slow build up, like over the next 5 years. That's why I think it's going to be a long term thing, and people need to adjust to the new realities rather than like being hopeful that things will go back to normal. I think yeah, building companies, you can't just be hopeful. You have to actually put in place actions and steps towards building on a new future. I mean, and with that comes opportunity as well.
Manage those changes though. Like if we think obviously that wage subsidy is with aim to help people retain employment so that when they come out the other end, there's no doubt as soon as everything opens again, demand will boom on day one. You can just imagine already thinking about what restaurant I can go to. But if they don't have, if they haven't been able to retain the staff, they won't be able to meet that demand as well. That's like from like a hospo perspective, I guess. But yeah, in terms of startups, it's an interesting one. Obviously, I've been working on something as well, but we're earlier in the process. So this almost gives us time to consolidate and kind of refine our product. But for people that are like such as yourself that are trying to kind of like build on what you've got and get those transactions through, seems like there's going to be a few challenges. What kind of opportunities do you think like you see as well as those challenges?
I guess for us, because we're constantly improving the product, the dev team can still keep going, which is really good. So we expect to have a much better product to sell coming out of this. There's also a lot of stuff around people realizing that, like our biggest sales challenge was people doing it themselves and doing manual verification. Like, oh, they'll just come into the law office. Can't do that right now. So, that's adjusted how we sell. We're like, hey, look, First AML, it's a remote verification platform. You can get AML anywhere in the world. So we're about to launch a marketing campaign called AML Anywhere, which sort of highlights that as an alternative to, having to meet people in person, which we can't do right now or
Yeah,
for the foreseeable future. So it's all about creating solutions for the market, regardless of what the market's doing. So you have to adjust but again, with that comes opportunity, right? Like it took us 3 months to find a product designer. If people don't make it through this part, this thing, there's going to be more quality employees out there. You can actually, as an employer, you can select high quality applicants who'll build your product better, and in turn give a better result for your customer. And that's some of the opportunities that we're seeing come out of this. And it's just everyone's just got to pull together. It's a really unique thing. Like most GFCs, there's someone to blame. There's like everyone, oh, the big banks or this, but there's no one really to blame in this thing. So everyone's coming together, and that's quite cool to see as well.
yeah, definitely. It's an interesting one though, because whilst there's no one to blame, there's definitely been like, obviously government has to make some tough decisions like to shut down business and hope that, you know, um, enough of them will survive out the other end of however long this takes. There is a counter argument there, albeit obviously at the expense of human lives, which is not something I'm endorsing, but it's interesting from like a philosophical approach to kind of understand that there's your humanitarian side where you've got kind of say 80,000. I read some Auckland research saying that if it was uncontained in about 400 days, you could have 80,000 deaths in New Zealand. So that was much larger than first thought. But even so, then we think about the flow and impacts of that on the economy and quality of life for the people that come through this, and potential suicides as well that result from economic crises, particularly if it does end up being, as you said, a 5-year kind of recovery. It's an interesting one. They had to make obviously a decision to lock down and put the economy on hold, and at the expense of each week GDP will just be plummeting, and there is going to be an impact, as you say. So
Yeah, I mean,
made decisions. No one's at fault. Obviously, it's a virus or anything like that. But the decision making over the next wee while will definitely impact the future of the economy and therefore flow-on effects.
yeah, totally. And I think our government's done a pretty good job, considering all things considered. Like this again, it's unprecedented. What all we could do is see what other countries have done and seeing how that's working. The major point for a lockdown and not letting, I think what you're talking about is what they call herd immunity. So it's you let it go through a population, which is good in theory. But the problem is during that process, your healthcare system gets overwhelmed.
Yeah,
So in that process, all of a sudden, all the hospitals are flooded with people, and then people with staph infections, ear infections, all this really minor stuff, they start dying as well.
Yeah.
because it's not so much the death from the virus or the disease that causes the issue. It's the strain on the healthcare system, and no system in the world is ready for that. I think I read somewhere that New Zealand's got 200 ventilators, like, you know, like that's just nowhere even close to the demand.
Yeah, I think in
The,
the article they said sort of 40,000 is like what they could capably deal with, and they're looking at
yeah,
80.
totally.
That's like 1 point something percentage rate of those that are actually infected, which was more like 89% if we went for herd immunity. So by no means
Yeah,
saying that that's the right approach. And I think at the end of the day, everyone just needs to get on board with the approach that's taken as well. And the sooner that everyone does, like making sure they're not going around and seeing friends or anything like that, which I know that people have been doing in Amsterdam, and that's extended their stay. I think
okay,
that's 1st of June now. But yeah,
yeah,
we need to like really collaborate now, I guess. I've
yeah,
started rereading Sapiens. Um,
oh, yeah,
COVID,
super.
but yeah, it's just really interesting around like if you basically try and like consider repopulation or passing on our gene as revenue, like comparatively in the economy. And he basically talks about how like we are always constantly trying to protect the gene, and therefore it makes sense on a basic level that we would just be like, yeah, the more people that we can keep alive, the more profitable the human race is in a way. That's kind of how he articulates it. And so we've always gone like bigger, bigger, bigger. We want more, we want more, we want more, and the people have had to work harder for it. So like when we moved from just foragers around like trying to find their own food in their own environmental systems, which of course we've effectively destroyed in a lot of ways, and then moved to farming them, where they were like able to birth even more children and basically just wean them on like wheat and things like that so that they lived, but none of those people actually lived very well. So it's kind of become like a pretty much a quantity over quality, which I just found ironic because now we are all locked in. And it is like with the goal of saving thousands, but of course that comes at the expense of the quality of life. But hopefully that quality of life is only for a short time. And if we do collaborate, like if we collaborate for a month, I reckon we could get this done in New Zealand. But if we don't, if people are out there going and seeing friends and things like that, it's an interesting one because this bit isn't up to Jacinda. It's not up to, even enforcement and things like that. I think they're going to have a hard time. It comes down to like now just pat mentality of New Zealanders and whether or not they are willing to make this short-term sacrifice.
Yeah, and I think the government, like, they put in the most extreme measure, knowing that people will probably flex on it. I don't think it's, oh, we have to all do this or that's it. Um, my main concern is what happens when we come out of lockdown. It's not so much the lockdown itself. It's like, okay, we're out of lockdown, but our borders need to remain shut for the next 6 months. While other countries get their ones under control. It's all well and good to do a lockdown, but then we can't open the borders to Australia, for example, and then have hundreds of people flooding in with the virus, and then we're in the same position we were in, four,
Yeah,
4 weeks ago. So my main concern is how does the world get back to being normal? Is essentially like borders have to stay shut. That's detrimental to the airline sector. The tourism sector is completely decimated for the next 6 to 12 months.
yeah.
It's just really interesting to see what those effects will be.
Globalization has effectively become our demise in this kind of
Yeah,
sense, I guess, because
which is also an interesting thing. Like it's nature's way of fighting back against globalization, right?
yeah,
But it's just another challenge. It's just another challenge for us to solve. And I, for one, am really excited, especially for our generation. People doing startups. In our 30s and late 20s, early 30s. If you think about our parents' generation, like a lot of them got rich after, on the back of the GFC. There was unprecedented asset growth and wage growth and all sorts of stuff that came out of the GFC. So this is a real opportunity for people our age because yeah, this is a catastrophe, but it's also going to change the way we live. And if we can capitalize on that as a generation, as entrepreneurs, there's some real cool things that can come out of it.
Yeah,
We can, I think we've all said, oh, our parents were so lucky they rid the asset bubble with houses, and now they're all rich and we're all fucked. Well, that's all well and good, but we're in the same position they were now. So how do we capitalize on it? I think that's the thing that we need to focus on, not so much the negative. It's what's the positive coming out of this.
yeah, and I think those that innovate and do think, sustainably about the future and how we can kind of ride the coattails out of this will make it through. I think there's lots of
Yeah,
businesses that are going to fail, but those businesses are already unsustainable. And I hope we use this as an opportunity to kind of drive away from unsustainable business practices as well. Obviously, we're going to see, we are seeing improvement in the environment overseas, but I think that'll be, yeah, I mean, some of those businesses just haven't had sustainable business models in place anyway. So hopefully they take this as an opportunity to either revise the way that they are doing business, or maybe some of them will fall down. Well, it's likely that they will, if we're honest. But I think you're
yeah,
right. The concern is not only just this lockdown period; it's kind of the what comes after. And if you think about I mean, I think we are going to see a few selfish people, a lot of young people that think they're invincible and they just want to go out and see their friends and things like that. But I'd caution them to do that, because the longer we are in lockdown, the more hurt the economy will face, and therefore that will flow, through to those millennials who otherwise would have opportunity,
totally,
as you say. That's my biggest
totally.
concern, honestly. It's not my biggest concern. Obviously, lives is the primary concern, but um, after this, after we make it through, it's that, like, if we can get through this quickly and everyone collaborates and locks down effectively, then we can get the economy restarted and we can find those opportunities. But if it takes sort of like 3 months to get this like contained, I am seriously concerned about what that means for employment levels and opportunities for everyone going forward.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I can see Italy's numbers are starting to come down. That was 12 days into their lockdown, and obviously they're in a much worse situation than we are. Um,
I like that
Wuhan,
fast. I think, like, because they only started their lockdown March 9th or something, so
yeah, so,
we're
yeah,
4 weeks behind. Where we're way more spread apart as well, and a far less
totally.
and less aged population. So I'm pretty hopeful we can get it done quickly. But
Totally. I think places like Australia and the United States are in a lot of trouble. That's going to be a long time. I think their lockdown's going to need to be really intense. I honestly, I can't even fathom how they're going to do it.
yeah, yeah.
But we'll just see.
See you next week. Wow, what's the time?
Sweet.
Got a 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the chat. I'm going to do like a few of these over the next few weeks. Just bring on different people and hear their different perspectives. So I've got someone from an environmental perspective coming on, and I'm just going to hear different views and fill my time and hopefully entertain some people over the next wee while.
Sweet. Awesome. Let me know when it's live.